Okay, YouTubers, Space Detectives, Space Geeks and Pareidolia Police. Today we are looking at a couple of images. The first one I'm going to show you is this one. It's from Sol 2641 mass camera. Now this looks like a gun. I'm not saying it is a gun, but it looks like a gun, and it may well be a broken gun or something similar, as I'm about to show you. Now, I'm going to show you the Gigapan that I've made of this area as well, briefly in a minute. But first I'm going to show you this, and then we can backtrack a bit and find out where to look and what to look for. There we have it. We have a clip here. This is taken completely raw. When you download the original image of this, it's got this grid pattern on it. You can get rid of that by blurring the image very slightly. You just need to put a little bit of blur in there and it will get rid of this weird kind of grid. Okay, but you don't have to, you can still see it. I mean, it depends how much you zoom in. But anyway, I digress. Let's have a look at it. We've got a strange pipe-like structure, which looks very much like a barrel. It's got a part sticking up here. Hang on a minute. Let's do that again. This mouse is going a bit crazy again today for some reason. Basically, we have what looks like a trigger mechanism here. We have a barrel, which isn't quite straight, which leads me to believe this may not be a gun. But there have been other similar things with bent barrels. A lot of these things on the surface look like they've been melted, so it is possible that some of these things were superheated during the cataclysm and may have bent. Now, this part at the back here, I don't know if that's joined. I think that's part of the rock behind. I think that the gun-shaped object kind of comes round like this. It's got a part there, a part there, and a part sticking up here, and it comes to there, and obviously it comes right round. That's in heavy shadow there, so we can't see a lot of detail. The mechanism, what looks like a trigger, which may not be, comes to there. We've got that bit, that part sticking up there. We've got a part here, and we've got a part here which looks like another part of the trigger mechanism, almost like you would get on a repeating rifle like a Winchester, where you have you pull this clip, this well, I'm not sure what you call it actually. It's got like a ratchet kind of part underneath, and you pull it out, and it reloads the next shell. So that reminded me of an old Winchester, like you would get from the 1870s or something, 1880s maybe. So let's get rid of that and look at the detail. Now, if I go back a bit, you can actually see in here, there's a sort of round bit on the back here, just here. I can't do a circle very well with this mouse for some reason. Let's get a bit closer. Let's try going from the other direction. There we are, that's better. And it kind of spirals around like that. So that in itself is an interesting detail. But what caught my eye initially was this, what looks like a trigger, because we have a part with another part here. And when you look closely, we seem to have a mechanism in here, there. Okay? Now, of course, it's not very sharp, so let's sharpen it up a bit and see if I can drag that out. Let's make this a bit bigger. I'm going to go in quite extreme here and see if I can really push out these details by sharpening it more and bringing out the actual contours a bit more, so we can see a bit more of what's going on here. So there's some kind of mechanism here. At least that's what it looks like. And we've got this nodule on the bottom, like a butt, like you would get on a rifle butt or on the handle of a pistol perhaps. You've got this sort of metal, what looks like a possible metal part there. And this part at the back, obviously, I don't think that is actually, this part here, this angled thing, I think is just a rock that's behind it. I don't think that's part of it. The possible gun is lower down and the barrel is there. But it does look bent. But of course, it's probably very ancient and it may have melted partly. But it may not be a gun. It could be a bit of plumbing. It could be part of some kind of mechanical device that just happens to look a bit like a gun from this angle. I'm not saying it's a gun, but it does look like one, and others have been found, and they do very much look like machine guns and cannons. So it's not out of place, and it's certainly not the only one of its kind. A lot of people criticise me for publishing these things that look like shoes and and bits of clothing and guns and tanks and statues and all this thing. But there's hundreds of these things. On my channel, there's hundreds and hundreds of these things. This is about the 5th gun that's been found in the area now. Some of them look more like cannons, some of them look like tanks or gun emplacements, and this one looks like a handgun, and it's not the only handgun I've found. There's about 2 or 3 more. There's a machine gun, which is all rusted and corroded and half buried, but you can see the locking mechanisms. This gun thing is down here. You go along the bottom, and there it is. And you can see this thing that looks a little bit like a moai head there. This dark thing, which is probably just a rock, but who knows. And then we have the gun here. Now, pay attention to the thing next to it as well. Now, this was interesting because not only do we have this gun-like object, which looks very vague. Let me brighten this up. This is raw, so it's very vague. Let me brighten this up a bit so we can actually see what we're looking at. It's going to take a second because it's a very large image. There we are. Let's add a bit more contrast. Let's go a bit darker. Let's go -10. There we are. This will make it a bit darker, but it will bring the shadows out. There we are. So there's the gun. So you don't need to do a lot to these images really. You just got to play with the contrast. And if you want to get rid of the grid pattern on the image, just blur it slightly. That will do it. There it is. And you can see that trigger mechanism there pretty clearly. But there is a square object right next to it here, which is very odd. And it even has like a central part to it as well. Let's go back to the clip, the enhanced clip, because it'll be clearer on here, hopefully. Just here, see that? You can see the square object here. It's not perfectly square, but it's got like a central part to it with almost like a flower-like pattern, like a rose-type pattern to it. Very interesting. So, is it a gun, or is it a bit of piping or tubing or plumbing? It could well be a gun. There are others in the area, and this is not the only one. This is not the only pistol-looking thing. It's not the only gun. It's one of a whole bunch of them found so far, not just by myself, but by other researchers. So that was interesting. I'm just going to really quickly show you this Gigapan, because this took a lot of work this did to get this. Unfortunately, there's a few missing images from this set, and they don't seem to have put them in. So we got 3 black square gaps in the whole thing, which is rather annoying. But anyway, if we look in the background here, into the distance, we've got the lower slopes of Mount Sharp up here, and then here we have all the buttes all in a kind of row here. And these are burial mounds. Some of these are burial mounds. Some of them have entrances, some of them have windows, including this one, which is apex shaped, right? There we are, like a building, right? A lot of it's buried. This is all kind of buried here, right? And on the apex roof type structure, we have a rectangular window-like structure just there. So take a look at that. I'll just get rid of that, and then you can see it, right? Let me play with the contrast a bit more. Let's go darker again. That should bring it out. There we are. Now, this isn't a very good angle to view it from, but luckily, I've already done a video about this area here, these amazing buttes. These are burial mounds. Some of them aren't, some of them are. Some of these were probably sort of pyramid-like structures, not actual pyramids, but huge kind of... but what we have here is what NASA call dunes, or frosty dunes, and they look very much like tubes, which are joined, okay? And they've got some going under and some going over each other. Very interesting indeed. Then we have a straight one there joining these two. Now, when you go on the main page here, this is how it looks raw, and here's another part near it as well. Now these look more random, but this one here doesn't look that random to me, and people are struggling to explain this in geological terms or whatever terms you might come to. Now these dark patches are supposedly dark carbon dioxide, frozen carbon dioxide, according to NASA. And these are just kind of supposed to be sand dunes, right? Very strange indeed. Landscape of polar dunes nicknamed Arrakis. Now Arrakis, funny enough, when you look it up, is actually a name that comes from science fiction of an area on Mars or something, due to from a film called Dune. There was also a series of books, science fiction books called Dune, which some of you may have read and seen the film. The film is actually really good, and that's where they got the name from. So they're almost tempting you with looking a bit further by using such names as that for this sort of thing. So that's interesting. But if you look at these shapes here, they're really cool. Let me get the folder up here, because I've got a close up here that Terry did, which is actually really nice. He's brightened it right up and turned up the contrast. And let's zoom in and have a look. You've got these dunes coming here, and then almost the perfect right angle here, and then a sort of nodule where it's sort of joined onto that, and then we've got this one coming underneath, and then under and over. Oh, this one actually goes under that and then comes out this side. This one kind of goes under and kind of joins there, and you can see somewhere they were joined up. They're sort of joined underneath. I mean, this is really, really strange. And is it possible that we are actually looking at tubes here? Transport tubes, or a lot of people have hinted on in the past that they've seen tubes on Mars, and a lot of astronomers have commented on this, saying that they look like channels, or canales actually doesn't mean canals, it means channels. But basically, a lot of people have found similar structures to this on Mars. But this is one of the best examples, because we have them sort of going under and over each other. Now, how would dunes do that? How would that actually work? Now, there are some strange forces at work on Mars, because basically it has a much lower gravity than Earth. So you do get some pretty weird structures in the dunes, but it's getting very hard to explain some of these things in a sort of logical fashion. And the way these are lit up and so perfectly, they're all the same width. I mean, we've got, if you look at my cursor here, if I zoom back, my cursor is about, let's go back a bit more, there we are. Now, if you look at my cursor is about the same width as that tube there, right? And this one, and this one, and all of them. They're all very, very symmetrical in width. In other words, this tube that comes along here is the same width as this one, which is the same width as that one, and the same. Now, if these were caused by wind and wind erosion and piling up of kind of sand, why would they all be the same width? I mean, that has to be some kind of impossibility. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm a bit struggling. Well, as you can tell, I'm struggling to explain this, and I really don't think there is a logical explanation for these being so equidistant. I mean, the measurements here of these tubes are all so perfect. Look at that one, that curve there. I mean, they're so perfect, and uniform is the word I'm looking for. That it's almost impossible to explain, because if these were natural, they would be a lot more random. A bit like we have in the area above here, we have what are more random ones, where they're sort of not so symmetrically shaped. In other words, the widths are kind of narrow and go fatter and wider, and these kind of flatten out a bit. But are these damaged structures that have then had sand form over them? Perhaps. Perhaps perhaps people lived in these areas. I mean, we don't know. Is it possible that these are actually intelligent structures that have sand that's blown up against them, partially covering them up, and some of it's become eroded away and showing some kind of substructure that's coming through the surface here? Because this one here seems to go down into the ground. This one here, absolutely incredible. I'm a bit lost for words, really. Let's go back to that again, because this is nice and clear. This one here, there's one that takes a left turn off here, look, and then just disappears into the ground. Just goes straight into there. So I will take some clips of this, and in fact I'll try and find the original source image, which would be much, much larger, and take some much higher resolution clips of these, and see if I can find a bit more detail in here. But this is pretty good. I mean, Terry's done a good job here, and he's just brightened it right up and added more contrast. And it's kind of brought the shapes out, but these are so uniform, it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, there are lots of crazy structures or scars on the surface of Mars, which I've shown before in previous videos. Look at my video called Scars on Mars, Crazy Scars on Mars. And a lot of them are very, very similar in width as well, but they're much more random, and they sort of crisscross each other, and are caused by dust devils and little tornadoes or whirlwinds, if you want to call them that, going along the surface and then kind of cutting a track. They leave these scars, and they show the darker material below the surface. What they do is they blow away the lighter dust on the surface and show the darker material below. That may be what we're seeing here, but if you look at the way they're lit up, we have a darker shadow with a lighter part to it. These are tubular. That's really the only thing I could call them, is tubes. And I don't really see how, if these were random, they would join like this. I mean, if that was caused by a whirlwind or a little dust devil, I mean, what did it do? Let's take a left turn, and then we'd go over that other one, and then go under this one, and then under this part here, and then down into the ground? I don't think so. I mean, we've got a little dome-like thing here as well, just here. Now, of course, these may be very ancient and covered in snow and sand and all sorts, you know, and this is probably why NASA just call these things frosty dunes. They call an awful lot of things frosty dunes on Mars, which really don't look like frost or dunes, okay? So that has to be taken with a pinch of salt, at least some of the time. So that's about it for today. I will leave links to these images in the description below, as usual. This was a cool one. Another very interesting image from the surface of Mars. This was taken by the HiRISE, which is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has got a great camera on it. Really, really good. And so thanks to Terry, for posting this on Mars Magazine page. Very interesting indeed. It's caused a nice little conversation between us about what's going on here. But it certainly doesn't look natural, especially this part of it. Really crazy how these kind of go under and over each other. Very interesting indeed. So thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe, give the thumbs up, and please do comment. If you don't want to put a full comment below, just put a little smiley face or a thumbs up or anything will do. The comments really do help with videos now. If you don't get over 100 comments on a video, it tends to die very, very quickly within a few days. So any sort of little symbol or emoji will be good. Thanks for watching. See you soon.